Hi, welcome to Jet Radio. This is Ted Shire, your host, and my guest today is Doug Carter. Doug is Senior Vice President of EQUIP, an international leadership training organization that has gone to almost every nation and trained leaders there. They've got a few more to go. But this is a show about sustainability. Jet Radio is dedicated to community service as a means of sustainability. And a few introductory remarks before we begin our question and answer period. And so, again, I always want to begin with the definition of sustainability. And here at Jet Radio, we define it as everyone doing their part to better the community, because that's what sustainability requires. And so, why is sustainability relevant at this time? And it's because there's a growing number of nations that are becoming unsustainable, whether that's economically or environmentally or socially. There are some concerning trends that are developing, and more so as the decades progress here. So the current reality is that governments have taken over responsibility for people in need, and that's not had a good track record. That approach lacks the kind of community that's needed to provide sustainable personal change. And alternatively, helping others helps us. And so it's a win-win situation. This series is part of a book launch for Everyone Needs Sustainability. That's a book that I authored that talks about community service as a means of sustainability and how the different types of sustainability interact. That's personal, community, environmental, and financial sustainability. But ultimately, it's all based on human behavior, and so that's why it starts with personal sustainability. This week's focus is the church as a community facilitator, and we will discuss how the church is uniquely suited to help our communities become more sustainable and do it on a voluntary basis. So, Doug, can you tell us a bit about EQUIP and your background?
Thank you, Ted. And first of all, let me express my appreciation for the opportunity to be with you, and also to thank you for your vision and passion around the issue of sustainability, and certainly in terms of the betterment of communities. You're to be applauded not only for your heart in this arena, but also for the time and hard work that you went into writing a book addressing this very important issue. So thank you for what you've done and what you are doing, and thank you for letting me spend a few minutes with you today. I'm a native of the state of Georgia, born down in a small community in the southern end of the state, down near the Florida line and the Georgia coast. Married my high school sweetheart, did some college training, and moved into the business world, and expected to be there in the marketplace throughout my lifetime. But through a series of events that confronted me with the needs among the Native Americans, or the American Indians out in the American Southwest, particularly in Arizona with a number of the tribes there, my wife and I found ourselves in the summer of 1964, 50 years ago plus, moving from Georgia to Arizona to begin to invest our lives in outreach to Native Americans, particularly to Indian youth, and with a special focus on education. 16 years later, I became the president of a small church-related college in the state of Ohio, and there spent about 10 years trying to help equip young men and women to go and serve, not only to serve God, but serve people, serve their communities, make a difference on our planet, and had a very challenging but very rewarding 10 years there. I then became involved with an international organization that was sending full-time personnel around the world to serve in many capacities as Christian workers, from education to medicine to more traditional church work, community development, what have you. and helped to provide leadership there as part of the executive team as a vice president for another 10 years before I received a phone call in the summer of 1996 from a gentleman by the name of John C. Maxwell. John Maxwell, today widely known for the many books he's written on the subject of leadership. And John said, Doug, I'm very interested in starting a nonprofit organization that will have as its sole mission and purpose crisscrossing the world and walking beside those who are involved in service in the name of Christ to others. And he mentioned pastors, he mentioned missionaries, he mentioned anyone, regardless of their status, if they had a heart for making a difference in a positive way in the lives of other people. He said, I'd like for us to go and walk beside them and serve them and invest in them, providing training and resources that will enable them to become more effective in what they're doing. Because he said, I believe if we're going to be able to impact our world on the way that we want to, we must train and equip men and women to multiply their influence. And he said, I think leadership training and development is the key to that, and we'll do it in a systematic way, and we'll do it with excellent curriculum, with ongoing instruction. And so asked me if I'd like to be a part of that. And I said, John, it's a great dream. I love your vision. I love your desire to impact every nation by touching the leaders there and lifting lids from their lives and helping them to reach their maximum potential to make the most possible difference in their churches and their neighborhoods, their communities, their cities, their country. I love this. I said, but tell me about your team that's going to help you do this. And he said, well, Doug, you know, if you have a great dream and you have a bad team, you've got a nightmare. So he said, I assure you I'm working on my team. And I said, well, tell me about the team. And he said, well, when you join the team, it'll have one member. So I had the opportunity in the summer of 1996 to make a commitment to join John in a new initiative, brand spanking new, to help get it off the launch pad. And so made a move from Indiana down to Georgia, where we have operated Equip since December 1st, 1996, and have been privileged to provide training and resources and encouragement for leaders serving in 190 of the 196 officially recognized nations on earth. So we've come a long ways. We've touched millions of lives. And, of course, our focus has been that we are not the people who do the frontline work in terms of medicine or education or community development or housing or clean water or fighting the AIDS pandemic, but we come alongside those who are doing it and do everything in our power to enrich, empower, enhance, elevate, make them more effective so that they can do what they're doing in a more effective way, have greater impact, and also be able to sustain it over the long haul. So that's a bit of who we are and what we do.
You know, I've been really looking forward to learning from your experience today, and so I can't resist asking a couple of follow-up questions there. So, you know, several of the things that you've done are within the realm of sustainability. Feel free to mention you know, things that rise to the top there in terms of sustainability lessons over the years through your experience. But also, would you say that leadership is the key to sustainability?
I may have a somewhat biased view because of the fact that I've spent so many years in leadership and so many years attempting to train and equip leaders. But I am absolutely convinced that at the very top of the list is leadership. I just don't believe that any social sector organization, nonprofit organization can be sustained without superb leadership. As John Maxwell so often says, everything rises and falls on leadership. And clearly, if we are going to have organizations that are maximizing their potential, it's going to take more than a great vision, great passion, a great dream, a great heart. There's going to have to be good leadership. Now, obviously, along with that, there are some other components that I think are crucial. One of those is partnership, the ability to collaborate, work together to realize that we have to lay aside our egos and our logos and come together in partnership, whether it be formally or informally, whether it be created with a document or a handshake, but just around a shared vision and mission to make a difference and work together without caring about who gets the credit. And then I think ultimately not only is it a leadership issue and a partnership issue, but I believe sustainability is also a stewardship issue. And that is that there are certain things that are entrusted to us, be it finances, be it human resources, be it other gifts and abilities, and to be able with good leadership in partnership to maximize the use of resources. I refer to that as stewardship, and so that we minimize waste and maximize impact. So, all of those things are there, but I believe at the top of the list without question is leadership, because I'm convinced it's the lid on everything. And until the leadership of any endeavor is lifted to a higher level, there's no way that particular cause can reach its full potential. You have to lift the leaders first.
Gotcha. Now, this is an appropriate place to get into some of the materials that Equip is developing. Can you tell us more about those materials that Equip intends to help better not only leaders, but the community?
As you realize, pardon me, Jeff, Ted, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please go ahead.
I read an email this morning from Equip describing some of the new materials coming out, the Equip curriculum. So that's what I'm referring to.
I've got it. So let me back up and say that you're entirely correct that across many years now, we have tried to focus on the fact that leaders need to be trained, leaders need to be developed. We have come now to the point of not a new vision, not a new focus, but somewhat of a refreshment of the vision that says it's not enough to have a trained leader. Those leaders must be mobilized to do something. And we've come to think about them as not just trained leaders, but as transformational leaders, leaders who are very intentional about making a difference in the world around them. And so we say, and just as we tried to provide materials that would take, if somebody was on the scale of 0 to 10 as a leader and say that person was a 4, and we could get them to an 8 and help them double their leadership impact and thus make a great difference in their leadership. Now we're saying that we must provide a curriculum that will enable them to become more intentional in terms of being transformational. That is making the greatest difference in the communities that they serve. We've picked up on a term that is biblical, and it was a term that was used by Christ himself when he talked to his followers about being salt and light. And we're using it, we believe, in a valid context when we say that salt and light are about making things better and making things brighter. And somehow we're committed to what you said earlier about everyone doing their part to make the community better. And so when we bring to it the spiritual mention that the church brings, there is not only light to penetrate darkness, but there's salt to make things better in terms of the transformation, not just of individuals, but of culture. And it's so that we're touching every facet of life within a community, all the streams of influence within a community. So, our new curriculum has that strong focus on not just training, but on mobilization, so that it isn't a matter of training a person, but it's mobilizing that person to get out, in this case, in our context, to get outside of the four walls of the church or outside of the restraints of wherever they might be, out into the real world where they live every day, where there's real people with needs and problems that plague society, and become agents of change and agents of solution in those arenas. So that is the new focus as we've kind of refreshed the vision to not just train leaders, but see those leaders become mobilized as agents of change, or agents of transformation is a word that we use sometimes, kind of an intentional focus.
Yeah, real good. So is the mobilization part of that driven by assessment tools? How do you help the person see how they can make a difference?
Well, there is a great deal of thought continuing to be given to that. We hope to have the official rollout in February with an event we're going to have here in Atlanta, to which we're going to give people opportunity to see the rollout of the new curriculum. There's going to be some video components. There are going to be some small group materials. There's going to be some roundtable materials. There's going to be a number of materials that kind of flow in a sequence. But yes, there will be tools, and we will provide opportunities for training, whether it be a church providing it within their local context, a business within their context, or through the use of technology, a person who wanted to use the materials for impact in their communities could actually go online through a special technology that we'll roll out at the time of the conference in February, where they actually can go through the training online and then be able to get access to materials so that they could then utilize those tools within their streams of influence. And of course, one reason why we see it very important to focus on the church, and not to the exclusion of all others, but we believe that there is one place in a community where all the divergent streams meet. They may not realize that. They may not even identify themselves as being from those streams, but sitting in the pew on the average Sunday morning in churches across America are people who represent government, they represent the social sector, they represent education, they represent industry, business, they represent medicine, they represent the arts and sports and media and entertainment. You almost name a segment of life, a stream of life, you would find that somewhere in that congregation there would be one, perhaps up to hundreds, that represent that arena, and the very next day they're going to go back into that arena to go about the activities of living. And what we're saying is, when you go back into that arena, first of all, we want to help you to maximize your influence with your colleagues where you are. But more importantly, we'd like to see some partnerships built between the streams so that there would be cooperation between different streams of influence in a community to help mobilize them together to impact their community, to better their community. So I hope I've given some clarification of where we're going.
Yeah, that leads real well into our next point, which is that the church is a diverse body that reaches out to a diverse community. It is representative of the community that it's in. And so because it has a diversity of skills, experiences, and interests that are found in the community, it's probably the organization that's best suited to reach the community. And so we're coming up to a break time, but right after that, we will go to some more questions. And if you just joined us, I am talking to Doug Carter, Vice President of EQUIP.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, You come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team,
I'll take a call anytime.
and then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
Hi, this is Jet Radio. I'm your host, Ted Shire, and my guest today is Doug Carter, Senior Vice President with Equip, an organization that trains leaders around the world and is also involved in community sustainability initiatives. And so when we left, we were discussing how the church is uniquely suited to reach out to the surrounding community because it represents that community. And so Doug has visited over 100 countries, and so he knows something about the topic of diversity. And Doug, how has Equip seen the diversity in the church abroad facilitate its impact in the communities being helped?
Let me just back up and add one thing to the comment that you had made about the fact that the church is, in many ways, that one organization that maybe more so than any other can bring together men and women from almost every stream of influence in a community. I think also when it comes to the issue of sustainability, it's very interesting to know that almost without question, if there is any organization on earth that has proved its sustainability in terms of making it through some very difficult, dark, dangerous periods, it's been the church. I'm thinking, for example, in China, where there was the effort to completely erase the church and any vestige of a religion. And now, not all that many years later, the church in China is record size. And so even when there's an attempt to destroy it, it not only survives, but often thrives. And I think it has so much to do with the fact that it's so cause-driven and is so missional in its focus and brings together people who are there voluntarily because of something they truly believe in. And I just think there are just so many factors that come into play with a church because of its being made up of volunteers who are willing to put time and financial resources into a cause that they believe in, that they bring something to a community-wide effort that is needed alongside, government and business and other entities that can help to take everything to a whole new level. And I've watched this in various places. We, of course, as I believe you know, Ted, have been involved in a rather large project in Guatemala where hundreds of volunteers have gone in from the States and engaged people in roundtable, small group type discussions particularly around personal growth and character development, and thus out of that helping them to confront issues in their country. And it's been on a massive scale and just continues to multiply in its size and its impact. And the stories that are coming back in of the difference it's making. The story comes one day from a bank, and the next day from a guy that sells fried chicken, but the next day it comes from a pastor, and the next day it comes from someone providing shelters for the homeless in a remote village. It doesn't seem to matter what issue they're trying to address and what difference they're trying to make. This large-scale effort in Guatemala not only has been unifying, but it has made a real difference in all streams. And so now the cries are coming just in recent days from Paraguay, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Tajikistan, Swaziland, identifying problems they have there and saying they'd like to see something on this broad scale that brings together the diverse streams of the community and challenges them to work together to address problems. And so I just get excited about the role the church has played. And I watched it in Burundi when the two tribes were destroying each other, and I watched the church be a key there to bringing them together. I watched it in Kenya at times of tribal division as the unifying voice was there. Because of good leadership in the church and their ability to be influencers in the community, I see something of that power of partnership even now in Indonesia, as they in one area trying to address needs there with orphans. I've been seeing it more recently in Egypt and Lebanon and Jordan as they are dealing with the refugee crisis, particularly along the border with Syria. And so, on and on it goes. But the power of partnership, I think, oftentimes sparked by leadership from the church, simply because the church is so cause-driven and can bring volunteers to the table. And volunteers, if they truly believe in a cause, will bring finances. And I think if those can be coupled with the other streams in a community, there's almost no limit to what can be done.
Yeah, so would you say that the power of the partnership increases with the diversity level?
I don't think there's any question about that. And that doesn't mean that there are not challenges. Any time that you bring partners together, there's going to be some differences with partners. And I think if you can bring people together and get them unified around a need, an identifiable need, a defining of reality, identify the need, begin to come up with solutions, and then keep those diverse organizations focused on meeting that need, and so that the face of the whole partnership is not the different organizations, but the face is that child that's being served, or that homeless person, or that person that's unemployed, or whatever, that person that is needing training for a job or whatever. If that face of the individual can become the face of the whole project, and seeing change take place in their lives, then each of the partners bring that which is their greatest strength to the table. If partnership is going to work, everyone has to bring something to the table of value, and everyone has to be an investor. I've always argued that many times we want to be involved in a project, but we'd rather be involved in an advisory role than in an investor's role. Now, there are places for advisors. There are times for advisors. I value good consultants. I've done some in my time. That's not the purpose of my statement. The purpose of my statement is say this: investment is the only way that I know to become a partner in something. You can be an advisor, you can have an advisory role, you can be in a consulting role, but to be a partner in an endeavor and have a stake in the ownership and a stake in the outcome and a stake in the impact, you have to be an investor. And so different partners bring different strengths to the table. But what I love about partnership, it lets each partner play to their strength and bring to the table the one thing or two or three things at which they are the best, whatever it may be. And with one, it may be marketing, and with another, it may be getting right down in the trenches, hands-on, providing workers. With another, it may be in the area of leadership skills or vision or training or whatever. But you can bring your strengths together, and somehow everyone is made better in that process. And I'm convinced that there's no one organization that can meet all the needs and solve all the problems. But somehow together, I just don't see limits. I see an unlimited possibility of what we can do if we'll put aside, as I said earlier, as our logos and our and egos, and just join together around a common cause to better our communities. I am confident that it can happen and happen beautifully, and I've seen it in a lot of places.
No, I really agree with that. Some of the things that we consider problems can actually be reservoirs. The social spending, if we address the personal sustainability issues, can be turned into a reservoir. But
it's so often that we have a tendency, it seems in our day and age, to just go with a Band-Aid without asking real questions about what's the cause of the problem and what's the long-term solution. I think sometimes we want a quick fix. We can get a quick picture and talk about, well, look what we did, rather than get down to the root cause and begin to address that. And it may take time, and it may take hard work, and it may take a lot of us coming together, and no one of us gets all the credit, but together we get the job done. And I think the church can play such a key role in that, but the church can't do it alone either. And yet the truth is, churches are made up of people from all the other streams, so why not we work together anyway?
Yeah. No, that's exciting. So you've been discussing how these partnerships can be focused on particular needs. How has working with a worldwide diversity of churches helped Equip?
Well, I guess I would say that we always value diversity because we believe that everyone who comes to the table brings something of value, and we can learn from each other. And clearly, as we have worked with people with a diversity of backgrounds, be it age, race, culture, skill sets, life experience, personalities, interests, you name it. It really doesn't matter. Not only has there been great learning from each other, but in the pooling of those resources, we've seen that we've been able to maximize what we've been doing. And I'm thinking back, I made just a quick reference not long ago to the nation of Burundi, a little mountainous nation in the heart of Africa, where the Tutsis and the Hutus were out to destroy each other. And yet, within the confines of a church, they made it very clear, even when one group or the other would come in and say, all the Hutus stand on this side and all the Tutsis stand on this side, with the idea that one group or the other was going to be slaughtered, they would refuse to separate, and they would say, we are one. We're not Tutsi, we're not Hutu, we are both believers, and we will stand together as brothers and sisters. And so it meant then that either they were all going to live together or they're all going to die together, but they were not going to be divided. And so out of diversity and realizing that they needed each other, and then learning to value each other and learning to appreciate each other, they came to a point of saying we are one. And even as I look at some of the issues that we're dealing with right now in our own country and some of the things going on around the country in terms of protests and so on, I find myself saying if we look for root causes, and then we could bring together diverse constituencies to work together to make a difference, how beautiful it'd be. I'm thinking of my friend just down the road here, Dennis Rouse, at Victory Church, who has brought together a diversity of people, not only in terms of racial diversity here in the Atlanta area, but really people from all over the world and from a variety of socioeconomic backgrounds, and has put this thing together into, I think it is one of the most exciting, dynamic church situations that I know about anywhere. And I see that it's happened because Pastor Dennis has been able to convince the people of how very much they need each other and how they can learn from each other. And then by drawing on the gifts and strengths of each one, putting it together in a joint effort, they can so impact their communities. It's been beautiful to behold. I have a pastor friend up in the Chicago area, Jerry McQuay, and he watched the demographics of his community change, and he could have done what so many have done and said, well, as people move away, we're moving away, we're relocating. He said, no, we will serve the people of this community. It doesn't matter. If they're all from abroad, if they're all from a different, ethnic group, it doesn't matter. We're here to stay. We are called to this community. It doesn't matter to us the color of their skin, their ethnicity, their background. We are here to stay. We're here to serve. And he has stayed. They have served. And I was there recently, and I don't think I've ever been in a congregation as diverse, but a congregation that is more unified. I might add, in the case, whether it is of the church in Burundi or whether it was Dennis Rouse here locally or Jerry up in Chicago, in both cases, I saw tremendous wisdom on the part of the leadership. And it made a difference, who understood how to promote value diversity and promote collaboration and cooperation, and then felt it was very important to maximize the gifts and the abilities, to steward the gifts and the abilities of their people. And I speak not only of finances, but of expertise. I remember some years ago hearing Dr. Billy Graham say that stewardship is about life, L-I-F-E. He said stewardship is about the use of our labor, our influence, our finances, and our expertise to bring about maximum positive change in whatever it is that we may be addressing. And so the stewardship of life is, in fact, the stewardship of our work, our labor, our influence, our relationships, our finances, and our expertise in terms of what we bring to the table. And every place that I've seen leaders be able to bring those together and then mobilize and empower to make a difference, it's been beautiful to watch.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent summary of how the church has advantages that can benefit the community in terms of diversity. So another advantage that's more in the practical realms that the church has to offer is that it's volunteer by nature, as we mentioned. And so that means...
That's such a powerful fact, and I think sometimes that's overlooked. But many years ago when I worked with Native Americans out in Arizona, I had a few paid people and I had a few volunteers. And when I was able to realize that my volunteers would enlist other volunteers who would enlist other volunteers, I suddenly realized that the volunteer side of what we're doing could grow exponentially, and it wasn't tied to my budget. Whereas with my paid team, it was as if I could only have so much paid team if I had so much finances, but there was no limit on the volunteers. And the next thing you know, these volunteers were transforming communities.
Yeah.
And because volunteers, a fulfilled volunteer can find another one. It's pretty beautiful how that works. I'm sorry, I just wanted to throw that in.
No, I'm enjoying hearing your input here. So, given the scale of some of the sustainability issues, not only in our country but around the world, it's likely that we're going to need some free options out there. And like we're alluding to, the volunteers can often have more enthusiasm and potential than those that are paid. But let me ask you a specific question related to that.
Yeah.
Equip is familiar with the masses, and so you've seen what's going on out there. Are there paid options for taking care of the needs of the masses? Doesn't the scale of the community need almost preclude the paid option? Doesn't it have to be volunteer by nature?
I see what you're saying, and I think that sometimes we have felt that either let government take care of it, or let nonprofit organizations, through the funds they raise, through whatever means, take care of it. And my feeling is that we have to bring the church, nonprofit organizations, and even the people in the business community and even the governmental community, and find ways to promote cooperation among all of them. And I think that's one of the things that's made the Equip effort down in Guatemala work well, is that we were able to bring the different groups together to the table and help them to see that we weren't there to take sides. We were not there to try to make the government look good or the government look bad. We weren't there to try to make the church look good or the church look bad. We just felt that there was a need in the country. It would not be solved without all of the entities being involved, and we were able to gain the approval of the president of the country, the parliament, business leaders, church leaders, educational leaders, not just educational leaders in terms of public education, but private, parochial, Protestant, Catholic, every arena there. And that has just been amazing. And yet, so much of the funding for that initiative has come from churches here stateside who said, we want to be a part of this. So I go back to the comment I made earlier that if you take a group of people who are volunteers by nature, as churches are as a whole, and give them something that they can see that will really make a difference in people's lives, it's amazing how many resources can be gathered. And when people are gathering their resources voluntarily to do something they believe in, they are so much more generous when they believe they're being forced, shall we say, taxed to support something, but when they can be voluntarily give to do something. And to me, that's what the church brings, is this group of people who will give sacrificially even at times because they believe it's making a difference.
Yeah. No, I think that gets to the heart of that matter. I want to ask you a few more questions and follow up to that, but right now we're going to go to another break. And when we come back, I want to hear more about what happened in other countries like Rwanda.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, it's Ted Shire, host of Jet Radio. Today with me is my guest, Doug Carter. He is the Senior Vice President of Equip, an organization that trains leaders around the world. And that organization is coming up on having a training presence in every country in the world. And they're also making a vital sustainability impact, not only in other countries, but here in the U.S. And so when we left off, we were talking about some examples of how the volunteer nature of the church has benefited countries. And I was curious, Doug, if Rwanda is one of the countries where you've spent some time, and if so, can you tell us more about the transformation of that country?
You probably realize, Ted, that when I referenced Burundi, that Rwanda is the neighboring country, and Rwanda is made up of the same two tribes. It's Tutsi and Hutu. So the same tribal war and attempted genocide that took place in Burundi was identical in Rwanda. It's just in one country, one tribe had the advantage, in the other country, the other tribe had the upper hand. But we dealt with the very same issues, and again, it was the church, the people of the church, the leadership of the church that was able to play a mediator role in bringing diverse factions together. Not always successfully. The situation, of course, was extremely serious, and those on either side of the divide were dealing with issues that had existed for a long, long time, and thus bringing reconciliation was extremely difficult. But I would argue that in Rwanda, as I've seen in many nations in crisis, and crisis can be from the result of an earthquake, a tsunami, the death of the leadership of a country like in Poland when there was a plane crash that wiped out many of the leaders. That there are just many reasons that a nation can be in crisis, including situations with a government that's hostile to freedom and to liberty and human rights. That in every situation that I know anything about, the church has been able to play a role in bringing diverse groups together. It's interesting to me that even in a country like China, where the church has been seen as illegal and thus driven underground and in many ways banned, when there was a great earthquake out in western China, the first group of people on the scene with blankets and food and clothing and in time medicine, many other things, were people who came from the, quote, unregistered or illegal church, to the point that they had such an impact in meeting community needs in western China out among the minority people in China, that particular province moved very quickly to recognize those unrecognized churches as legal, just because of the impact they had of being on the front line of serving in an hour of crisis. And this we've been able to see over and over again when the leaders will define the need and come up with solutions and mobilize leaders and gather financial resources or other resources and address the problem. And we've seen that in numerous places, including in Rwanda. So, whether you're dealing with rescuing AIDS babies in Swaziland and trying to deal with that crisis, or responding after the tsunami in Japan, or working with refugees in the Middle East, or working in the prison system in the state of Alabama or the state of Indiana, or the prison system in Colombia in South America, we've watched the church in partnership with others make a difference. In Colombia, in fact, there's a prison down there that within the prison population typically would have 350, 360 or so murders every year within the prison. And within a year's time, after bringing character-based training into that prison, in a partnership between the government and a nonprofit organization that had a character-based leadership training, it's interesting that in 1 year's time, that particular prison, I'm looking here at the stats, went from 365 murders down to one murder per year.
That's amazing.
Just through the introduction of that kind of stuff. So, and our friends over in Birmingham at Church of the Highlands have led a major charge to impact the prisons in Alabama, to the point now that some of their largest gatherings on Sunday of their satellite campuses, and they were very good at reaching satellite campuses like at Auburn University or the University of Alabama or others. Now some of their largest gatherings are prison populations all across the state. And then, of course, the follow-up program they have, that when those prisoners come out, they've only begun that journey. They move right into job training and reentry kind of programs and transitional kind of programs, and to bring people out of prisons back into the communities where they receive the kind of training and resources they need to become a contributing part of society and become a part of the solution rather than remaining a part of the problem. And they're just communities here and there that are doing that, and the church is playing a key role.
Yeah. No, I think one of the follow-up points I'd like to make with in dealing with these examples from whole countries is that volunteers can actually reach whole countries, and that is the sustainability need. Whole countries need to be reached, and so
that is correct.
Yeah.
And because of volunteer service and volunteer giving, it's like there's no limits to what can be done.
Yeah. Are you? I recently heard Pastor Rick Warren talk about their work in Rwanda, where one church, Saddleback, has really been instrumental in transforming the entire country. So, I mean, that's a pretty good ratio, one church to one country, and they brought in a diverse team, including a city planner, doctors, various professionals, and the country has been transformed to the point where other nations are coming to Rwanda and coming to Saddleback and asking them to help them. Are you familiar with that situation?
Yes, I am indeed. In fact, we had trainers going into Rwanda on a regular basis during the time that much of that was happening, and certainly applaud what was done by Pastor Rick and the church. And it's a great example of what one congregation can do. And the truth is that story on a different scale, because in Rwanda, a smaller country, for one church to bring transformation to 1.5 billion people in India would be a different issue. But there are churches taking on certain cities of India, certain provinces of India, and we're seeing that happen in a lot of places. And they are not only then able to just send dollars there, or conversely just send their people there, but as I said earlier, they can send volunteers, they can send financial resources, they can send expertise, they can send people who are key planners and strategists and designers, and because the church has people from those different streams they can bring together. And yes, Rwanda and what's happened there with Saddleback is a great model and example of what can be done all over the world.
Yeah.
And I argue in several places is being done.
Yeah.
And to me, the beauty of it is because it's being done by a Saddleback, it's not just about financial assistance, though that's important, nor even is it just about human resources, about the volunteering of time and labor, but along with it is that spiritual component that brings about accompanying life change. So we see individuals change, and so there's both a heart change and then a lifestyle change, and then the impact that comes from that. And interestingly, I don't think that being greedy or being selfish or being generous, the other end of the scale, moving from greed to generosity, I don't think that is necessarily an issue of culture or being rich or poor. I think it's largely about heart change, and whether poor or whether rich, I think it's about becoming others focused. And the more that churches look out rather than look within, and they do not want to just be a place where a group of people can come together and hold hands and talk to each other about how great we are and look how wonderfully we are, but a group of people that are looking out, and the church is focused outward, and they're not confined to the four walls of the church. In fact, they don't have walls; they have windows, so they can see out, and those windows are full of doors, and so they go out and they see their community around them, and they see their community as people with needs that are next door and literally to the ends of the earth. And so it is out of that heart change of becoming others focused that we begin to realize that what's in our hand is really not for us, but it's for us to utilize to make the greatest difference in the lives of others. And the people who have impact and people who have influence and people who have legacy are people who are focused on others. I quote Billy Graham, and I realize that for many people, Dr. Graham is a man who's nearing the end of his life, and we don't hear from him much anymore. But I can remember in my boyhood hearing him speak from time to time, and a few of his lines I've never forgotten. And one of them, he said, the smallest person I ever saw was a person totally wrapped up in himself. And just that whole idea of being self-centered. And if you're wrapped up in yourself, you're going to have limited influence, limited impact, because you're only going to influence one. Whereas if you're others focused, there's absolutely no limit to the difference that you can make. And so it's in that heart change that we begin to get people to turn towards seeing the needs of others. And I think it's then that people begin to find their greatest fulfillment, not in what they can do for themselves, but what they can do for others. And the church, I think, plays a key role in bringing that dimension to this whole endeavor.
Yeah. Do you think that the church can bring about the kind of heart change that's needed to cause the financial diversity in the church to be manifested in helping distribute resources amongst the more needy members? Because that's a culturally difficult issue.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ted. And I've tried to spend a great deal of my lifetime thinking about, writing about, teaching, speaking about this whole area of stewardship and generosity. And I realize to some extent on this spectrum of leadership, I like to argue that we kind of begin at first base, and it's more about followership. About being a follower, learning to be a good follower under a leader, and ultimately then we begin to develop our leadership skills, and it moves us over into a new dimension where we begin to have some concern for who are we influencing and how we influence them. But I'm convinced that ultimately, if we are to reach our maximum potential, we have to begin to ask questions about how do I maximize the influence of my life. And that's when we begin to realize that the whole of what has been entrusted to us, all that's in our hand, if we can realize that its potential is in its use, it's not in its being hoarded, it's not on what is on our financial statement, what is in our bank account, but the impact of anything is in its use. And then when we begin to use those things that are entrusted to us, be it finances or otherwise, or expertise or time or what have you, and then we begin to see life change in the lives of others, I think there's something about seeing needs met, lives changed, problems solved, and hearing those reports that grow generosity. I think there's nothing that causes a generous person to want to become more generous than to hear that his generosity, her generosity is making a difference. And so I think on the church side, we have to forever keep before the people the opportunity to make a difference. And then when they do invest, make sure they know that they are making a difference. And so we bring needs, but we also provide solutions, and we tell them how they can be a part of it. But I think you're absolutely right that we're only skimming the surface when it comes to tapping the resources that the church possesses of what could be done. But I would far rather be in a process of educating people to be generous and training them to be generous than I would in trying to force them to be generous. And that's the advantage I think the church has over government, even though government must play a role, in that the church doesn't need to force anyone to be generous. They need to teach them to be generous by showing them the difference that it makes.
Yeah. I think this is an exciting area for a lot of people. So do you think that, we're excited about that potential that the church has to transform lives? And I'm just curious, when we talk about transforming current problems into reservoirs, like our 58% on social programs, do you think in terms of potential that over time the church could be a very significant part of transforming the federal budget expenditures on social programs into a reservoir that we could use for other things, like things that work, like research and development, even on technology and the social programs themselves? What do you think about that?
I believe that very strongly. I think that we may have, on the church side, defaulted by saying the government's taken over that area, and thus we're no longer responsible. What tragedy it would be for us to see it that way. It's obvious that as we look at the national debt, as we look at the problems and the scope of the problems that we face as a country, just looking at it purely U.S., to say nothing of all the countries of the world, when we multiply it worldwide, it's obvious that the problems are not being solved. Now, it may be because on some occasions it's the wrong solution. I think that we have an opportunity then to be a voice, to be sure that we're finding solutions that really work and finding ways to measure outcome, so that we're not always talking about how much are we putting in, investing in and throwing at a project, but are we sure it's making a difference? And is there a way to evaluate and make sure that the utilization of time and dollars is producing maximum result? But if I look at this in terms of money, in terms of time and effort, I think if we can not only grow partnerships within the various entities that, and I'm thinking not only of church, but of like parachurch organizations. You look at the roles that people like Compassion and Teen Challenge and the Salvation Army and One Hope and others have played, whether it's with troubled kids or whether it's with the poor, or whether it's with children or whatever the case may be, bringing not only organization together, but then also walking beside the government, not as enemies. And I realize that that gets the lines there can be blurred and sometimes very difficult as to how church and government can work together, particularly with some of the things that seem to have developed in recent years in our society that seems as if everybody's saying keep the two apart. My argument would be that if we can bring the church back around to see that solving these problems that we're talking about is a part of our overall mandate to be salt and light. Jesus as our example, when he saw sheep without a shepherd and began to talk about salt and light, I just see examples all over the world. I think about a situation among the garbage people, they call them in Cairo, and 300,000 people living literally in the garbage dump and in these mountains of trash, fighting with the rats and the cats and the dogs for food, and no education, no health care, and this one pastor of a very affluent church decided we're not just going to send dollars there and send people there. My wife and I are going to resign our church with all of its comforts. We're going to move there. We're going to live among those people, and we're going by example to show them how life can be different. And then we're going to reach out to them. And today, the largest congregation of people in all of the Middle East is among the cave people, or it's the garbage people who now meet in caves, in churches that meet in caves. But today, not only do they have church, but they have schooling from first grade up through 12, and they have medical clinics. Now, all of these meet in caves, but well-equipped with well-trained people, and in some ways, the so-called garbage people, the throwaway people of Cairo, today have a strong community that with education and with health care and with faith, all because of a person from a church who said, we're going to go there and make a difference. And so it seems to me there's no job too big. Some of the tasks may look overwhelming, but I believe it can be done when the church will work together with the community, and the people within the church will bring together their diversity of gifts and abilities. And yes, we have, if we can not only help the people of churches to see the need, but then to see that they have the resources to meet the needs and be able to do it with a spiritual component, a heart change component, and then a change in terms of lifestyle and the lives of people. There's just no limit to what can be done. Even in countries where there's almost an absence of a middle class, with India, with the remains of a caste system, or nations that are tribal, or areas where minorities are persecuted, or where certain religious groups are persecuted. I'm convinced, regardless of the odds that are stacked against the church, that in cooperation, that we can address the needs and solve the problems.
Yeah, I think that's a great story and a great way to end this broadcast. There's a lot more material that we need to cover in this area, but we're out of time for today. And thanks for joining us today, Doug, Senior Vice President of Equip. And we look forward to having you enlighten us again in the future. So that'll be it for today, and thanks for joining us today on Jet Radio, talking about the church as a community facilitator.